Hey boys and girls, it's Brian with BG Model Workshop, and welcome back. We're doing a final on the Drag Week group build hosted by Mr. Taylor Braun over at Too Tall Model Garage. And if you're not familiar with Taylor, go check out his channel, because apparently right now he is working on just about every Camaro there's ever been a model kit made of. He's up to his armpits in Camaros right now. So thanks again, Taylor, for hosting this group build. A very inspired idea. I think it was really cool, and it gave us the desire to just want to get in there and get this build done, because you know, the philosophy of the Drag Week thing is that the dragsters themselves have to actually drive from drag strip to drag strip, and they're not allowed to have a support vehicle, and so a lot of them tow trailers. And I thought, man, a dragster with a trailer, that's just going to be awesome. So we chose to go with the MPC Pro Street, excuse me, not Pro Street, it was Pro Stock Mustang 2. This is the 1974 Mustang 2. So here's a clipping of the actual box itself. Oops. And beautiful box art. I loved it. That's what hooked me in. And then when I got a chance to actually open the lid of the box, I was like, oh, I got an idea. Got an idea for this kit, and we're going to go for it. I love the color scheme that's on the box art, so I went ahead and stuck with it, with a red, with black on red, red on black. I don't know, but yeah, the red. We had gone with a red hood originally, and then I just thought that was a little too much red, so we backed off, sanded it down, did it back in flat black as in the box art. So we didn't stray very far from that at all, other than the decals. So as far as MPC kits go, this one was actually a lot of fun to work with. Very, very few flaws or irritations, I should say. It is molded in red, so I went ahead and just stuck with the red theme. Although we did prime in white to use the Tamiya Italian red, and I think that really helps that color pop. After we had painted this, that's when we discovered the benefits of using a pink primer. So this was probably the last white. Red on white primer paint job I'll ever do, but it still looks very, very cool. We did get a chance to pick out all the little lettering on the tires with one of those white jelly roll pens, and I discovered that the jelly roll stuff isn't very survivable. I had to do a lot of extra handling of the rear tires because I had to go back and do my scuffing on them, and it just rubbed the jelly roll right off again. So yeah, I was very sad that I had lost my jelly roll. But I went back and touched them up again, and no problem at all. Let's see, some of the bright work on the side of the car here. We have Molotow pen on the gas cap and the door handles, and then we did bare metal foil on the B pillar, and I had to go A, B, C, D pillar. 2 years in the library, and I still have to do my ABCs that way. We also did bare metal foil around both the front and rear windscreen surrounds. I thought that was going to be the best, because they're molded very, very nicely, so I figured it would be pretty straightforward to do the bare metal foil on that stuff. And then we used a silver pen for the windshield wipers up here in the front, and we'll get a closer look at that in just a second when we go up for the engine. The only modification we actually had to do was add a little bit of... Oops. Oh, it's not coming off there. There we go. A little bit of styrene on the hood scoop to raise it up just a little bit, because the velocity stacks I decided to go with from the parts box were a little on the tall side. And yeah, they do look like nuclear power plant cooling stacks, but I think they fit the engine bay just fine. So there's our windshield wipers there. And we just did a little black wash on the vent grills there. We did fab up a battery tray for the battery. We whipped that up in just a couple of minutes, and it sure looks like it. We just did a little bit of picking out some of the detail in the engine bay, because the detail in here is very, very soft. There's wire looms going all over the place in there, but the molding is so soft it's hard to get in there and just try and pick out that detail. And I decided to go with the velocity stacks because the kit came with air cleaners that went on there, and they look like a couple of chromed fruitcakes, so I decided to just steer away from that and go with this style. I really like how that looks. Now, we did do a two-tone job on this here, so we got some gloss black going along the bottom here, and I think that looks really cool. There is a body line, the mold line that goes right along through here, and so that made masking very, very easy. We used the some Tamiya tape to mask on there, and then we went back over it with a burnishing tool that our friend over at BAS Dry Docks refers to as a nose picker. But yeah, it did the job of getting that on there, and it looks awesome. Let's see here in the back. Oh, here's kind of a cool little detail that MPC tossed in. This chrome stripe here is actually a separate piece that presses into the bumper mold. So thank you very much for that, MPC. We appreciate that. That was something you got right there. And then, of course, here's our scratch-made little trailer in the back. We've done a couple of videos on that already, so we're not going to waste much of your time with that. But I wanted to let you know that it was so much fun that I've got a couple of extra tools in my arsenal, I guess would be the best way to say it, so it will help me build more trailers more accurately, because I did have a little trouble with working with material here at the house. Apparently, we don't have anything in this house that's square. Everything has sort of a rounded edge to it or whatever. So it made trying to make that trailer a bit of a challenge. All right, so we're going to detach the trailer from the car so we can tip the car up on its side and take a look at the bottom bits. And we'll be back in just a mo. Alrighty then, so we're going to tip them on its side so we can take a look at the bottom bits. But before we do that, I just want to say that the interior tub for this particular kit seems like it was something that was created specifically for this release of the model kit. I've talked to a couple friends of mine that are actual styrene whisperers. They're very knowledgeable about kit history and stuff, and they did confirm that this kit was actually a 74 Mustang II that was modified. The molds were modified to make the Pro Stock version. So the radius, the wheel wells, and I believe that's about all they did on the actual body itself. But they had radius the wheel wells, and then they added in an entirely different interior tub that's actually tubbed itself for the larger rear wheels. And the chassis pan was modified by cutting out the rear wheel wells, and then I think that's basically all they did to the chassis pan. But the tub itself, the transmission tunnel for the tub, does not fit the transmission tunnel molded onto the chassis pan, so we had to hit it with a motor tool and shave off quite a bit of plastic for everybody to be able to fit down. The tub would rock side to side on the transmission tunnel. Wasn't the actual floor was not touching the chassis. So let's take a look underneath. The chassis itself is molded very, very nicely. I like how they have these little hard points in here for like where the seat belt mounts would have been. And you can still see, well, maybe not, but we'll get closer still. Let's see here. Sorry about the wiggliness. So yeah, here's the holes for the original leaf spring system that was part of the original kit, and is no more because apparently they had ruined the molds to make this version. Well, ruined. I say ruined, but that, you know, it is still a pretty fun little kit. The headers, those are fun. The engine has to be mounted and glued in place, and make sure that that is secure. And then wiggle in your headers, and they go around the suspension. I'm sure there's many other kits out there that have this particular style, but specifically Mustang kits, I believe, because of how the engine sits over the front suspension. But the headers, you have to snake them around the suspension, and that worked well for the driver's side, but the passenger side, we actually had to snip off the rearmost exhaust tubes and then get back in there with some needle nose pliers and snake it all back together again. It all worked out in the end, but it was just a little bit of a sticking point in my opinion. We did add some aluminum tubing in order to emphasize the exhaust collector look. And I decided to go with a yellow drive shaft because I figured if it's a dragster, we want to know what's coming out underneath the car. Will come flying out from underneath the car on a drag strip, so I painted it yellow. I thought visual interest would be kind of fun there. And the gas tank is molded separately, so if you want to do a fuel cell, you can leave that out, put the fuel cell in there separately or something like that. So this kit does, it's a very good kit in its basic form, but I think to somebody who's an actual dragster builder, somebody who knows what they're doing when it comes to building a dragster kit, would be able to detail the snot out of this thing and just have a lot of fun with it. So the biggest tip that I have about this kit, the biggest thing you need to watch out for, is when you're doing your mock-ups and everything, make sure you have the rear bumper not only on and secure, but as far forward as it's supposed to sit. Every time I did my mock-ups, I did not have the rear bumper on there. And now I had to, during final assembly, I had to go in and shave off as much of the rear chassis pan as I absolutely could, because right now we're having a little trouble with our wheels sitting a little far forward, and we can see that kind of like that there. So that's my tip to you guys. Make sure you got that rear bumper on there as far forward as it can go. I was worried about pressing it on there and not having it come back off again, but don't worry about that. Yeah, that's a solvable situation. That'll keep you from having to swear a lot during final assembly. All right, boys and girls, thanks again for tuning in. I want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. We're up to about 630 now, I guess. So appreciate that greatly. I also want to say thank you to the folks that comment on our videos. I really love having a running dialogue with you guys about not only the kits that we build, but also chatting with the folks on the videos that they themselves produce on their builds. So I just really love being part of this community, and I can't wait to see everybody in November down in Georgia. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you a little bit later on. Bye now.